Today on Sports Central, we'll be going over our next final prediction of this offseason, and it's going to be over the Tennessee Titans. And this is a team, of course, that made it to the AFC Championship game last season. And yeah, this is a huge surprise team last season. No one expected them to make it to the AFC Championship game. Not hardly at all, but whether this team can make it back and why I think this could be a Super Bowl contender once again in the 2020 season is what we're going over here today. We're also going to be going over your returning production along with a full prediction and preview on every game on the Titans' schedule heading into the 2020 season. So anyway, with that, let's look at your season trends from last season. Of course, they were 4-4 between September and October. They were 7-4 between November and the postseason. I mean, this team was a very, very improved team. Like, if there's an award for most improved team in the NFL, I definitely give it to the Titans for last season. I mean, they were 4-4 between September and October. This was a team that started very slow. And they did not have very good wins towards the beginning of the season. In fact, they had more of bad losses. That's what I would consider this Titans team to have. But yeah, they were 9-7 in the regular season. They were 11-8 overall, so they did still have an 11-win season, which all around is not bad at all. So for the Titans, once again, I mean, all around a great season. This is a team that also really never was expected to be a great team. I mean, I believe they were the 6th seed in the playoffs last season, so everyone expected them to get knocked out to the Patriots in the first game of the playoffs, but yeah, that didn't happen by a long shot for the Titans. And this team, once again, I mean, if you look at their last 4 wins on this key wins list, I mean, all of them are towards the end of the season. They beat off the Super Bowl champion Chiefs 35-32. They also beat off the Texans in the last week of the regular season 35-14. And that was before knocking out the Patriots. I mean, that was a huge win there, 20-13, in Tom Brady's last game as a New England Patriot. And I mean, the Patriots last season especially, I mean, they kind of declined as the season went on, but still, I mean, they were heavily favored to win that game against the Titans there in the wild card round. But they also beat off the Ravens. The Ravens were 14-2 in the regular season last year. They beat them off 28-12. That game wasn't even close. I mean, there was a 16-point difference there. So the Titans all around, I mean, at the end of the season, this team was on fire, and that's why I think the Titans could be a potential playoff contender next season as well, considering how much they improved as the season went on. And that's especially true if Ryan Tannehill and this offense can stay healthy. I mean, their offense was something that very much improved as well. I mean, when Marcus Mariota was their quarterback last season, I mean, he was okay, but he definitely was not, I would say, a great quarterback. And, of course, he's not even with the Titans next season. But, yeah, certainly I think Ryan Tannehill did a really good job with this Tennessee team as they went on through this season. I mean, he was a big reason why this Tennessee team went so far in the playoffs last season. As far as the returning production looks, of course, they returned their breakout quarterback, Ryan Tannehill. And, of course, he was with the Dolphins previously, and he really did not have a whole lot of success with Miami. So, I mean, for him to have this success with Tennessee, I'm not sure what the Dolphins are thinking of that. But, yeah, I mean, he was a great quarterback last season, one of the best in the AFC, I would say. He was able to put up 2,700 yards with 22 touchdowns and 6 interceptions in the time that he did play. So, considering that, and he also only played 12 games, and he started 10. He only started 10 games last season. You got to consider that, and that, in my opinion, is very impressive from Ryan Tannehill to have only started 10 games last season and to put up nearly 3,000 yards. That's very impressive by Tannehill. And, of course, they returned their top running back in Derrick Henry as well. That's going to be a big return. He put up 1,700 yards with 18 touchdowns last season. So, I mean, he was a great running back too. I mean, no one really expected him to put up the yardage that he did last season. Of course, he also had 5 fumbles, so he did have a bit of a fumble problem, but still, I mean, it's not all that bad compared to some running backs. They also do lose their second running back, the running back 2, Dion Lewis, as he is now with the New York Giants. But really, he did not have that big of an impact on this team last season. 370 yards and a touchdown is what he had. And they do return their top receiver in A.J. Brown, which he was another receiver that came out of nowhere. I mean, I don't think really anyone knew who he was before the 2019 season, but he was able to put up over 1,100 yards with 9 touchdowns last season, so he was a great receiver for the Titans. And, of course, they also returned their second receiver in Corey Davis, which he's a wide receiver with a ton of upside still, I think. I mean, he's very young, only 24 years old, and, yeah, he's got 600 yards with 2 touchdowns as well. So, Corey Davis, watch out for him going into the 2020 season. And they also returned their top tight end in Jonnu Smith. He was he was a great receiver for this team as well. I mean, he had a big impact on how this team did last season as he put up over 5,000, or 500, not 5,000, as far as the yardage goes. And he also put up 3 touchdowns too. So, hey, you can't forget about what he did for this team as well. But yeah, once again, though, their quarterback, Marcus Mariota, of course, he's played and he started with this team for several past seasons, and he is no longer with the Titans for next season. I believe this team will now go with Ryan Tannehill as their quarterback for some seasons to come, and especially if he has the same amount of success as he did from the 2019 season, I'd expect Ryan Tannehill to definitely be the quarterback for this Tennessee team for many years to come for sure. Yeah, Marcus Mariota, he's now with the Las Vegas Raiders, so he will not be with the Titans next season, obviously. And they also bring in a cornerback, a defensive back in Joseph. That's going to be a big player for them to bring in on this defense. Same with their linebacker, Vic Beasley, which will be coming in as well. As far as the players that they're losing, though, they do lose the right tackle in Conklin, their defensive tackle Johnson, and their wide receiver in Sharp, which last season, Ty Sharp, of course, he did put up over 300 yards, but still that was nothing in comparison to, say, A.J. Brown or Corey Davis. So I think that was a good decision to let him go. Of course, he's being paid quite a bit as well, so that was probably a smart decision by the Titans there. But brings up the question, are the Titans a league contender for next season? I mean, there are a lot of questions for this Titans team going into next season, especially considering how they were not a very good team at all at the beginning of the season. However, they improved a ton over the season, went on, and of course, they made it to the AFC Championship game once again. Can't forget about that. And honestly, I mean, I think this is a team that's definitely a league contender for next year. I think people are really sleeping on this Titans team, especially with Ryan Tannehill at quarterback. I mean, for him to perform as well as he did, considering he really was not able to put up a big season outside of his Tennessee season last year in 2019. I mean, if he's able to stay healthy and if he's able to put up the talent and put up the yardage that he did from last season, I think this Titans team is easily a league contender. I think they're easily a playoff team as well. I mean, it's tough to say once again whether or not they can make it all the way to the AFC Championship game or the Super Bowl again. But, I mean, I still think this is a team that should be able to make it to the playoffs pretty easily next season. As far as your schedule looks, of course, you start off the season with a road trip to Denver. You play the Broncos on September 14th. And then you got the Jaguars on the 20th, followed by a road trip to Minnesota to play the Vikings on the 27th. In your October, you got the Steelers, Bills, and Texans in back-to-back-to-back home games. And so you're going to be at home for pretty much your entire October, which will be nice. However, you do have a road trip to Cincinnati to play the Bengals on November 1st. And then you follow that up with a trip against the Bears. Then you got the Colts, of course, on November 12th. You got the Ravens on the road on the 22nd, followed by a road trip to Indianapolis on the 29th. And then in your December, you got the Browns, Jaguars, Lions, Packers, and Texans in that order. And here's what I'm expecting out of your September. I think you take a couple losses towards the beginning of the season. I think you lose to the Broncos in Week 1. And I went back and forth on that one several times. But I think the Broncos next season, watch out for them. They could be a very, very improved team for next season. I don't think that they're a playoff contender, but I think the Broncos could get up to 8 wins next season possibly. So I think the Broncos in general, I mean, they also have a good home field advantage. Can't forget about that. So I think they get the win there against Tennessee in Week 1. However, I do think the Titans come back to beat the Jaguars on September 20th. I do think you take a couple losses, then after that you lose to the Vikings and the Steelers. So a pretty rough start to the season for the Titans, I think. I think you start off 1-3. However, I think you win your next 4. I think you beat off the Bills. That's going to be a huge win. I think that kind of sets off the Titans. I think they get a win against the Texans there too. Another big win. You got your bye week, and then you play the Bengals. That'll be a win as well. And I also think you beat off the Bears at home on November 8th. So you got 4 wins in a row there. I think that continues against the Colts. I also think you beat off the Colts on November 12th. However, you take a couple losses there against the Ravens and the Colts again. I mean, you got to play the Colts 2 times within 3 weeks. So that's going to be kind of a tough situation there. So I do think the Colts, though, I mean, next season, they're another team to watch out for. Of course, now they got Phillip Rivers at quarterback, which is tough to say whether or not he's going to be able to perform to the level that he has in the past with a new team like Indianapolis. But still, I think they're a team to watch out for next season either way. So I think the Titans do take a loss against the Colts there on November 29th. I do think though you take 3 wins in a row between the Browns, Jaguars, and Lions in the first 3 weeks of December, and then you take 2 losses to finish off the regular season against the Packers and the Texans. So kind of an up and down season for the Titans. I think you go kind of on a winning streak, and then you go on a losing streak, followed by another winning streak. But anyway, yeah, your record prediction 9-7 for next season. I think overall, I mean, a 9-7 season is similar to how they were, or actually exactly the same as to how they were last season in 2019 in the regular season. But in the end, 9-7 is still not bad at all. I think the Titans do make the playoffs next season. However, your prediction stats are going to be 7-1 at home, 2-6 on the road, 4-2 in the AFC South, and then lastly 7-5 in the AFC Conference. So, but anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments below on this Titans team. Let me know whether you disagree with anything here. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that in the comments below. But as always, thanks again for watching. If you enjoyed this preview, be sure to slap a like on it and subscribe as well. It really helps out the channel. I'd really appreciate that. But as always, thanks again for watching. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central, and I will see you all later.